Hello, my name's Lester Kiewit.
And I'm Tara Roos.
And welcome to The Bowl, where we talk things politics, parliament, and maybe a little bit of pop culture. I can't wait to hear what's Tara's hot take. How are you doing, Tara? Late nights at the National Assembly, sitting at the Cape Town International Convention Centre.
I got 2 hours of sleep last night. And I had to be up bright and early to come and record this podcast.
Someone who has nothing but a career. I have a career plus 2 young children.
Yeah.
I got 2 hours of sleep last
But
night.
you get 2 hours of sleep every night, so.
What is on our agenda today? We talk politics, parliament, and a little bit of pop culture. But we're making the politics personal. In this episode, we're talking about what people in the comments section have want us to talk about. And that is the spiraling, rising cost of living in Cape Town, this Republic of Cape Town. As a single person who is house or flat hunting, what's your experience at the moment?
I can't do it. I think for a good 6 months, I've been looking for an apartment in Cape Town, specifically near the CBD, because I work this side and it takes me an hour and a half to get to work every single morning. And I refuse to sit in traffic any longer. And I can find absolutely nothing that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And just has basic necessities like built-in cupboards or an oven in the kitchen or like a decent bathroom. And I don't even think that I'm asking for a lot. But for me, when I look at the cost of living, the increasing cost of living in Cape Town, I do not understand how people are surviving. As someone who is single and has no children, I could not imagine having kids. And I think for me, and it is a discussion in my friend group and looking at a lot of my colleagues and my peers who are talking about like getting married in the future, those in long-term committed relationships, those who are thinking about having kids, it's like, when do you do it? When does it become financially liable in order for you to do that? Especially because I think a lot of people have this perception that like Cape Town is the best city to raise your kids, which is all good and well, but how do you afford raising those kids? You have kids.
I think you afford living in Cape Town by not having kids, if there is advice for a younger generation.
How do you do it? You have kids.
Rather not. You make sacrifices. You decide to not buy for yourself, and you make sure that there's prepaid electricity in the electricity meter, that your bond or your rent is paid, that your utilities are paid for, that you have water coming out of your taps, that school fees are paid, you have petrol in your car and food in your fridge.
And you list all of those expenses, and it's just like, it amounts to so much when you're living in the city specifically. But something that I want to push really strongly against is that I know Joburg gets a bad yap. And as someone who has lived in both Cape Town and Joburg, and in a relatively privileged position in both cities, for me personally, and this is like my personal experience, I know other people might feel differently, I don't think that there is a drastic change to my quality of life having lived in both Joburg and Cape Town, because I think that there is a certain level of privilege that provides a lot of social security for you as an individual, regardless of where you live. And I fight really strongly against this narrative that like Cape Town is the best city ever and we have absolutely no problems, because Joburg has many issues. There have been many times, where for like a day or two I didn't have water. But I mean, like yesterday I was like 20 meters away from Parliament and I got attacked by a homeless man. And so there's issues like that, specifically when you look in the city. I mean, in the Stafford parking lot that they've allocated by Parliament, there are 2 homeless encampments, like one on Betagun Street, which like is on the sidewalk, and there's another one in, I think it's Duval Park, in that parking lot there by Hope Street. And I mean, there's issues like that in Cape Town that I don't think a lot of people often talk about or address, because Cape Town is seen as this idyllic city. And there's many amazing things about Cape Town. Yes, we have the ocean, we have the mountain, but the cost of living, it is just astronomical.
So when we talk about housing and affordable housing, what do we mean by affordable housing? Because there's mixed income housing, and there is affordable housing, and then there is grant funded housing. What do you think when people talk about, and we have to use some sort of metric here. We can of course talk about the very poor, which is the majority of South Africans. Close to 50% of this country lives beyond the defined poverty line.
Yeah.
We can talk about the working middle, or we can talk about the middle class. And I'll be quite honest, I live in a dual income household. I am if I use the metric of, in terms of who is the elite, and I'm not saying this to sound grandiose, simply by my dual income household status, I'm in the top 4% of this country. That may sound shocking to you, but if you earn more than 10,000 Rand a month in South Africa, you, ma'am, are in the top 10% of this country.
And I think for a lot of South Africans, because when you look at our Gini coefficient, the disparity between the top 1% and the lower 90 is so vast. I think for a lot of South Africans, when we talk about affordable housing, I think when you're looking at the lower LSM, it's looking at social housing. It's looking at how does the government provide housing, I think specifically in the context of a democratic post-apartheid South Africa, how do we address land redistribution and those who were previously displaced, and how their displacement during the apartheid era has affected generations now post-democracy. And I think for the middle class, we're really looking at yen stabilization. There is no way that I can fathom how people are allowed to charge like 20,000 Rand for something that is like 20 square meters. Like now they've started this new thing on Property 24, micro apartments shouldn't be a thing.
They're closets.
It is a closet.
Do you know what's fascinating? People auditioning to be seen by landlords. Something that I've seen quite regularly, if I were to scroll on my socials, is that people take a pretty picture with their spouse, their partner, all the kids, all the dogs, the cats, and then say, "Hi, this is us. I'm an occupational therapist. He is an architect. We'd like to rent a house or looking for a house in Noordhoek, in Vredehoek. These are our kids. This is their hobbies." Essentially, they're auditioning for rental or housing opportunities. And these are middle-class people. These aren't people who aren't necessarily struggling. Well, middle-class people do struggle. But these are people who can generally afford, but even they are struggling to find decent places to live in the city, simply because we can call it semigration, we can blame it on digital nomads, but we know that there are far too many people looking for homes and apartments and flats than there is availability.
I mean, look, my apartment hunting process has just been horrific. I think in the last 6 months, I've looked at thousands of listings online. I did count. I have gone to view 38 apartments in Cape Town. I haven't moved into a single one of them. And even for all of these, you go in a review of the apartment, then you need to fill out like a lengthy application form.
But what's in your audition?
My audition is actually very good. I mean, I've submitted, and out of those 38 apartments, I haven't submitted an application for a single one, just because they're all so bad.
Well, let's talk about the cost of housing. And firstly, property prices. Average property, just under 2 million Rand, would usually go for an asking price of 2.5 million Rand. If you're looking on the Atlantic seaboard, 45 million Rand
Insane.
on average. In the city bowl, where we are generally now, for when you're talking about either bachelor, one bedroom, or your micro closets, you're looking at 5 million Rand. When it comes to rentals, a one bedroom apartment in the city bowl goes for about 10,500 a month to 14,000 Rand a month. A two bedroom on the Atlantic seaboard, 22,000 Rand is the minimum. Or you could slum it in a student digs. There are plenty that have opened up here in the city, and you can share student digs or share a room for as little as 3,500 a month. You'd have to use a communal shower.
But even with student digs, I mean, I have friends who live in communal type living areas, and I mean, I once had a friend last year. There were 11 guys who lived in one house, and they all paid like 10 grand each. And this was in Rondebosch. Like, it was not even, also the student accommodation economy is something that is also so astronomical. I have another group of friends, it's 4 of them living in one apartment. I think this is also like in Rosebank, and they pay 8 grand a month, and there's 4 of them. Like, I'm sorry, I refuse. I mean, in my previous friend's case, I refuse to pay 10,000 rand a month to share a bathroom with like 5 other people. I won't do it.
Okay, so let's bring in some policy around this. There's never been officially any talk, and the city administration always shot a suggestion down. But something that could be looked at is not only building more affordable mixed income housing in and around the Cape Town City Bowl, but also rent control. Is that an option here?
I think rent control can work, and I push back really strongly. I think this is an issue that the City of Cape Town, more specifically John Neil Lewis, has tried to address multiple times. I mean, on his SMWX interview, he said, I as the mayor can't even afford to live in the city, and so I live outside of the city. And I was like, the fact that you as the mayor can't afford to live in the city, I think, is the root cause of the problem that you have identified.
I agree with the mayor, because you don't always have to live in the city.
You don't.
It's not a right.
It's not a right to live in the city.
It's not a right to
but
live in the
as
city.
Someone, I mean, how?
As a professional, probably has access to a car where you'll be the single occupant who probably would have money to call an e-hailing cab, and probably trains and taxis will be very, very low on your list. It's not a right to live in the CBD.
It's not a right, but
lovely
you
places
should
in Southfield and Plumstead. Lovely places in Southfield and Plumstead, if you so choose, but it's not a right for you to live in the CBD.
I agree. I don't think that it's a right, but I think the reality that working class South Africans cannot afford to live in the CBD. Working class professionals who are starting their jobs, who do not have kids, who have more disposable income to spend on rent, and who are willing to pay the extra to live for the convenience of living in the city, cannot afford to live in the city. I think that is a massive cry for help.
Look, of course, the displacement, the forced removal and displacement of black people from the Cape Town CBD as a part of our history does come into to this conversation. And while I do say it is no middle class person's right to live on Short Market Street, to live on Long Street, to just pop down and go to Jason's Bakery on Bree Street, I do think, based on our history and based on how the city empties out every night at 6 o'clock, when all workers who are black people leave the city, I think we need to make the inner city a little bit more inclusive in terms of the diversity of people in the city. So there's my caveat. While it's no middle class person's right to live in the CBD, we have to do something about, even as merely symbolic gesture, return people who have been forcibly removed from their homes in places like District 6 in Claremont, Harfield Village.
I think for me, my biggest argument and why I push really strongly for this, like, the internet has labeled me a digital nomad hater. I've openly come out and said, I don't think you can be xenophobic towards people who have blue passports. But I just don't think, and my biggest argument against this push for digital nomads, yes, they bring money into the Cape Town economy. Yes, they are driving up businesses. But at what point do we prioritize the citizens of Cape Town and South African citizens and citizens of this country at large before we say people who come in for short periods of time, whether it be 3 months, whether it be 6 months, they're here for the summer, they're here to sit in Clark's on a Tuesday and eat brunch and work on their little laptops and do their digital marketing because they can't find real jobs in their own country. When do we say the city needs to stop prioritizing them before the citizens?
But isn't that what you want Operation Bakisa to do? It's to look at where we can unlock, firstly, incremental levers of economic progress and growth, which then lead to bigger changes. So when I remembered what the president announcing in, forget which year it was, State of the Nation.
Oh, his smart city that he was going to build. Oh, God. Cyril and his promises that are unfulfilled.
But to say if we can have people here, and yes, let's set aside the impact of someone who can pay 6 months rent upfront to a person who's struggling to get together the 1.5 months deposit plus the rent. That aside, so that is an impact. But the idea around an Operation Pakisa, now it speaks to Home Affairs and visas, is so that while you're earning dollars and pounds and euros, but you're living on Bree Street or you're living in Sea Point, you spend that money here. you see particularly a local economy start seeing that money starting to circulate. The state takes its bit and share of VAT. If you happen to drive a vehicle here and you put in petrol, there's your fuel levy tax there. And so that's the idea of attracting people here who can afford to live here, not necessarily going to bleed the national fiscus and public systems, but the overall presence contributes to an economy.
Yes, but the money doesn't go back towards the citizens. And I think that is also the gripe of my issue right now, is I understand that digital nomads boost the economy, they'll increase tax collection, but do the citizens who need it the most see the outcome of that money? No. And I also think in the city specifically, you can't have it both ways. You can't not have affordable housing and then also not have a large-scale, robust public transport system. Okay, fine, not everyone needs to live in the city, but to get into the city is equally as difficult, because then, I mean, the chains have started to operate more frequently. But even I think I look at my situation, the nearest train station is like 20 minutes from my house. There isn't a bus route near where I live at all. Then you have to factor in, I sit in traffic for like an hour and 30 minutes every day. So there's no efficient public transport system and I already can't afford to live in the city, what must I do?
I don't mean, I'm not going to out where you live, Tara, but there's a reason that there was no need for a train line to go anywhere close to where you live. Let's just
that is fair. But I mean, even if you look at people who live close to train lines, the trains only run every 20 minutes, and I think in the middle of the day it's only every hour.
At R7.50, yes, it'll go up to R10 from the 1st of August. It's a 33% increase, but that's R2.50.
Time frequency, and in the beginning of the day, I do think it is like 20 minutes that they run in 20-minute increments. But even in the middle of the day, it's like an hour, like from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Like, you cannot have a train that only runs every hour and then call that efficient public transport and urban mobility and then still have sky-high prices in the CBD. I just don't think that is fair. So either the city needs to do one of two things. They need to have rent stabilization so we can afford to live in the city, or you need to have the trains operated every 10 minutes. Robust, efficient public transport.
In our lifetime. Okay, let's set that aside. Let's move to Parliament. After much wailing and gnashing of teeth, after 3 iterations of a budget, a policy and fiscal framework, and then departmental budget votes, the appropriations bill has been passed by the National Assembly, and it only took us February, March, April, May, June, July. It's only taken us 5 months.
We survived the Great War. You know, we've been here since the 19th of February, and I didn't think that the end was going to come. There were many times where I was like, is this budget going to tank? Are we going to have to take it back to the National Assembly? Are we going to have Fiscal Framework 4.0? Like, there were many times I was doubtful, but the end is near. It is now in the National Council of Provinces, and I am so happy. But yesterday was insane.
Because this budget and everything that has gone with it is also, do you call it a symptom? Do you call it a byproduct? Do you call it a consequence of what we call the GNU? It's essentially the coalition of the ANC and the DA and the rest of the 8 children, why mommy and daddy squabble. But remember, it was the DA that said it would not support departmental budgets of ministers with corruption clouds over their heads. So what that meant is that Nobuhle Nkabane, who's now, she claims resigns, Vincent Magwenya, presidency spokesman, says she was fired. She's out. But there was still Thembi Semelani and Human Settlements. She has a VBS cloud over a VBS bank cloud over her head. And the DA says, we won't support the budgets of these ministers. But that's what this could have meant is that there's a parliamentary rule, as you so adequately explained it to us last week, that if only but one of the 42 budgets don't pass, then the entire appropriations goes and you have to start all over again. But we managed to avoid that.
I think that what the budget passing and us being, I think, in the state of stability now is a happy coincidence. And this is my working theory, is that I don't think, as much as the DA is claiming it was their pressure that had gotten former Minister of Higher Education fired, I don't think it was that. I don't think them also now deciding to claim, you know what, we're here for political stability, we're actually going to vote for the human settlements budget, although I think it was their right decision in the end to not tank the entire budget. I do think that it's a politically convenient narrative now that the Minister of Higher Education has been fired. I don't think that the President, and also she hasn't been fired. Technically, according to the Constitution, the President cannot fire her. He dismissed her.
That was an absolutely, just to go to segue,
Yeah.
there was no announcement.
Yeah.
It was simply, I am appointing Buti Manamela as, and well done to Buti. He has been waiting
Beautiful.
10 years.
Beautiful.
If there is an example of patience or of someone I think should have been elevated to the cabinet very, very long time ago, it's one Buti Manamela.
I also think Cedric Florek. I'm also surprised he hasn't been elevated to cabinet yet, but he's good as house chair.
Well, he's a nice uncle.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. But where were we? I lost my train of thought. Let me catch my R7.50 Brasa Metro Rail. And so we could have seen a situation where we would have to start all the way. But why is it that the nice liberal-ish English and Afrikaans media says it was Cyril Ramaphosa who folded and fired Nobuhle Nkabane so that this budget could pass? You are saying it's in fact the DA that folded because it did not follow through with, for example, the budgets of Thembi Simelane, the Human Settlements Minister.
I think two things can be true at once. I think that from a governance perspective, the DA made the right decision. From a political perspective, the fact that they still supported the budget, even after saying that they wouldn't. I think the fact that they constantly use this politically convenient narrative of like the best thing for national interest, I don't think it's going to work for them much longer. The reason why I say that I think this is all a product of happenstance, I think that the reason Cyril had dismissed, and this is just, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist and I will be happy to admit that.
We're not that kind of podcast.
I think that the reason he dismissed the former Minister of Higher Education was not to save the budget and to fold into the DA as the narrative is pointing it out. I think that it is to save Gwede Mantashe.
It was to save the ANC.
It was to save the ANC, and I think, and this is unfortunately for the former minister, she does not have as much ANC clout as Senzo and Gwede. And I think the fact that it happened the day before she had to appear before the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education to account for the panel that selected the CETA board that involved current minister's son, Gwede Mantashe. She was supposed to be there on Friday. She didn't appear on the Friday. She had noted that she had to go to a Mandela Day event. Was supposed to appear the Tuesday, but was conveniently dismissed on the Monday. I just don't think that.
Because it wouldn't, I fail to believe of how it would simply have been Nobuhle Nkabane just one day waking up and saying, I would like to appoint these people.
Yeah.
And you'd have to ask, who were the people who picked up a phone and said, Minister, you will appoint these people? And then have to craft the story that there was a panel that selected, and this panel said that they did not meet. They did not. Advocate Tara Roos says he has absolutely no idea what panel he was a chairperson of. And so it was an effort to in fact save the ANC, because someone would have had to ask her and pressure, who told you to appoint Gwede Mantashe's son?
And you cannot lie in a parliamentary committee. You would be committing perjury. And for me, I think because Gwede Mantashe is the national chair, Cyril Ramaphosa has already had to put Senzo on special leave. I think that the circumstances, he didn't want to have to lose another ally. 2026 is coming up. We have to look at the broader context of Cyril trying to save his faction against the RET faction, how internal dynamics of the ANC is really shaping South African politics. And I just think that the DA got lucky. I don't think, and I am a firm, I mean, I have no evidence of this, and again, this is just a hunch, but I'm fully convinced all of those ministers and their staff has had their boxes in their office packed ready to exit the government of national unity. They didn't have to do it this time, but I think that they were all fully convinced that they were losing their jobs and they were going to have to go. And I think this was a principal stance and a hill the DA was willing to die on had it have to come to that. They were now able to craft this narrative to say, look, our pressure got the Minister of Higher Education out. We're actually going to support human settlements. We're going to save the whole budget. We will come in as the saviors of the day. And I just think that they got lucky.
5 options that are put on the table on the ANC's NWC meeting. Option number 1 is we stick with the GNU and the DA in its current form. Option number 2, we kick the DA out and we invite BOSA, Action SA and the Cape Coloured Congress. Option number 3 is we keep the DA and we invite them. I forget what option number 4 was. Oh, rule as a minority government. Or option number 5, it's called fresh elections. Let's do it all over again. We still have a government of national unity, but how close do you think we have come to meeting those other scenarios?
I don't think that the end is near when it comes to the GNU drama. Not just in terms of, I think, a long-term scale when we're looking at, 2029 is very far away. I don't think this is the end we're going to hear of the DA and the ANC fighting. We still need to appoint a new Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. There are still many other hiccups and bumps that are going to be still within this year, let alone come closer to local government in 2026 or ANC or DA Congress in 2027. DA Congress is also in 2026. I do think that there is going to be a lot more instability. And I maintain this AU shuffle is upon us.
Next week, we will talk about DA instability and what you're hearing. I know that John Neal-Lewis won't challenge John Steenhuisen to a leadership position. I understand there are people who are whispering in his ear and asking me if he's keen, but I do know that there's some sort of gentleman's agreement between the two of them that says if John continues to run as DA leader,
I think John will run uncontested. Yeah. I think if John continues to run, I think he might run uncontested. I'm of the opinion we're in the post-Steenhuisen era already. John's done.
Okay. Let's talk about that next week. But what to talk about, and we'll end of our parliamentary segment. I appreciate...
I know where you're going.
I appreciate the offices, the very important offices that form what we call the South African state. I appreciate the office of the president. I appreciate the office of the speaker. I even appreciate the office of the leader of the opposition, whoever it is. But can we just once and for all say and declare, 1, the MK party did not expect to get as many votes as they did. 2, the MK party has no institutional structure, memory or expertise. And yes, there are a couple of ANC MPs, former ANC MPs who are in MK. And thirdly, definitively, that they do not know what they are doing when it comes to being an effective opposition. During that appropriations budget vote, they voted in favor of the bill they said they were opposing.
You know what? I give it 2 weeks. Colleen's out there as chief whip. Because not only did they vote for the appropriations bill in its entirety at the end, also she had made this exact same mistake earlier on for vote 17 when it came to health. And she had said, oh, how does MK vote? And then she was like, oh, we support. And then Fralik, who was chairing at the time, was like, are you sure? And then she was like, support not. You didn't hear the not part. And we thought that was like the first mess up. And then it came to the end, the entirety. Fralik was cheering again. And you know what? He was actually very gracious towards her because he understood, like, shame, she just messed up.
So she tried to pull the pause not.
Pause not. But then she did it again. And then she tried again at the end and it didn't work. So then they were like, MK, how do you vote? And then she was like, we're in favor. He went back to her. He was like, are you sure? She doubled down. She then proceeds to double down. He goes back to her a third time. And she's like, we are in favor. They eventually move on to the EFF. They move on to all the political parties. He closes voting, then goes back to Colleen to be like, she's like, actually, no, I made a mistake. We need to change our vote. And Fralik, as the chair's discussion, he opened voting.
He also said, but don't worry, it's not going to matter.
It's not going to matter.
You've lost this one.
You've lost this one. But he opened up voting and allowed it to change the vote. But you know what would have happened had he not done that? at the end, when they close voting, they say, is there anyone who wishes to object or vote differently to their party? Every single MK MP at that point, it was only 49 of them, would have had to have stood up and objected to how their party voted in order to change it on the official record, had he not opened up voting. So I think that's also why he did that, to save us time, because at that point we were already at 8 o'clock in the night and Frolic was like, I'm done.
And wasn't it just 2 weeks ago where MPLs in the KZN legislature also voted against? So I believe we not only get the government we deserve, we also get the opposition we deserve.
MK's a mess.
And while the MK is a mess, they don't know what they're doing. I don't think I want to leave everything up to the DA and the ANC to co-govern and to co-be opposition against each other. And well done to Action SA, well done to BOSA, well done to the ACDP, well done to the ATM. I see their questions come through the parliamentary question system. I don't see that with the MK party. And based on that, I can't wait for 2029 to come, because we don't only need an effective, deliverable government, we need a strong opposition. And I don't think South Africans understand that. And
we don't have that in India, unfortunately.
Tara, people love your hot takes.
Yeah.
No one asked me about that.
Just no, unfortunately. You know, the new thing is people always used to ask me, what's your take? Now, because you always refer to the tea leaves, you're like, oh, what's in your tea leaves? Like, people in Parliament have started to ask me that. They'd be like, oh, so what do you see in the tea leaves?
Oh, oracle.
Like, I'm a fortune teller. My hot take of the week, I think we need to bring back and normalize people having normal jobs. I'm so tired of like logging onto Instagram or TikTok and seeing these influencers who like on a random Tuesday are in the south of France taking Aperol spritzes, or they're at Pilates at 12 o'clock and they're like a freelancer here and doing this brand deal event. And you know what? This is a critique of the capitalist system as a whole.
But
am I jealous? Yes, 1,000%. Because why are you at like some random farmer's market on a Thursday afternoon while I had to be in the office at 7 o'clock in the morning to read traffic? You know what I call my office? The dungeon, because there's no sunlight that comes through the windows. I used to have an amazing view of the mountain and I could see the NCOP from the Marx building. Now I face air cons and I sit in the dungeon and I'm there from the early hours of the morning to the late hours of the night.
But you leave for full. You've
done
duty to South Africa. Who wants to be on a yacht in the south of France?
I would like to be on a yacht in the south of France. Because, I mean, you know what, and maybe you experience this too, but I think we come and we do this job and we're like, we're making a difference in this country and we're contributing to be a part of the critical media and we're playing our part in democracy. But you know what? Middle South Africa does not care. They don't read the news. They don't engage with the media. They're in our comment sections asking like stupid questions. Someone tried to argue with me the other day that Parliament isn't an institution. Do you own a dictionary? Google is free. What do you mean Parliament isn't an institution? Like, these people, you know, I love the public and I love this country, but sometimes I feel we've lost critical thinking as a nation.
Well, someone said in the comment that I bet Lester cleans up well. And I do. And that's it for this week. Lester and Tara back with a bull. Next week, same place, same time, wherever you find us. If you want to ask us a question about Parliament, politics, where's Tara's favorite dumpling place, you can ask in the comments. Until next week, see you. Bye.
Bye.